Alright, time for round 2 of another theatrical DCU entry. I thought the universe was off to a good start with Superman, and the majority of the critics and audiences shared that same sentiment. It might seem a bit unorthodox for the second movie to center on a character like Supergirl instead of a notable heavy hitter, but I'm all for wanting to flesh out the Superman family and his mythos. Knowing that this was going to be the next Supergirl for the next generation, with multiple appearances in future projects instead of just a one-off movie, and having a much more important role in Man of Tomorrow. So it wouldn't hurt to have moviegoers learn more about her and get accustomed to her characterization. I made my way to the theater expecting this to be another banger, because I'm sure critics are gonna rave about this movie just like they did with Superman.
Oh.
What happened? What happened? What happened? What happened? Wallahi, what happened? Wallahi, what happened?
Due to some of the reception to this movie, some people have had extreme reactions like, oh, the DCU is fried, James Gunn needs to be fired, Lanterns and Clayface are gonna be bad, there's no hope for this universe. It really is just an overreaction. If this was, say, Man of Tomorrow, or God forbid this was the 2025 Superman movie, considering it was the proper launching point for the universe, I would understand the concerns for the future. But in no reality was the success of the DCU as a whole going to be dependent on Supergirl. And if I'm being honest, the movie isn't even that bad. It's not a great movie or anything extraordinary, but it's a fine and watchable entry.
I mean, it's alright, like...
For starters, I think the performances all around are pretty solid. DC Studios continues to showcase its competency when it comes to casting. We haven't witnessed any misses so far. Milly Alcock and Eve Ridley portray a very convincing dynamic and interaction as Kara and Ruthie. You see the wide range of emotion and believability when it comes to Kara's traumatic past and her experiences traveling the galaxy after having trouble settling on Earth. The way she's able to communicate with other alien species in their different languages, her back and forth with trying to guide and protect Ruthie, and the pain she experienced on Krypton through the flashbacks in Argo City all come together to create a compelling portrayal. I'm personally looking forward to seeing more of her and Superman's dynamic after the few scenes we saw of them in the movie, now that Kara's settling down on Earth for the time being and is confirmed to have a major role in Man of Tomorrow, as well as having a role in the next theatrical movie after that movie, so who knows what that'll be.
You know, you're seeing her journey in this movie, so now when she gets into Man of Tomorrow, you kind of like know more about her, you know about their relationship. Because in the next movie, Superman and Man of Tomorrow, you know, Supergirl's in it a lot. So they're in it together, so you see their dynamic, which I think is cool.
You can see a crossover, get Milly into that one as well.
No, Milly's got a big role in that one, yeah. Yeah, I feel sorry for her because she's flying around the world, coming to set, shooting with me, coming back, having them do more press, flying back. It's hard. But she's a trooper.
The casting is arguably even more exemplified through Jason Momoa's performance as the main man Lobo. I'd be shocked if anyone were to disagree with this. He was a popular fan cast all the way back during the DCEU era, and while I don't normally care for fan casts or hypothetical castings for comic book characters, this was one of the few that made the most sense, given Jason Momoa's passion for the character and campaigning to play the role for quite some time. The Gunn delivered on that promise and it paid off. He'd liven up the scenery every time he popped up on screen, and I appreciate how accurate he was from a visual perspective. The costume department looked at some comic art and pretty much did a Ctrl-C, Ctrl-V. Lobo's inclusion in the story ties back to how he was originally going to be a part of the Woman of Tomorrow book by Tom King and Bill Kieavli, which is the book the movie is obviously based on.
That book began as me pitching a Lobo Supergirl book, and it was my editor, Brittany Holster and Jamie Rich, who were like, no, take Lobo out and make Supergirl the Rooster Cogburn character. And so like it wouldn't exist without Jamie and Brittany.
It was stated long before the movie came out that while it's an adaptation of the Woman of Tomorrow comic, it wasn't going to follow it religiously and be a one-to-one translation. Undoubtedly, there were still going to be elements incorporated into the movie alongside any deviations from the source material, big or small. I liked how one of the planets that Supergirl and Ruthie visit was named after the artist of the comic. Thought that was a cool little nod or Easter egg. Some of the changes from the original story include the killing of Ruthie's family. In the book, only Ruthie's father was killed by Krem of the Yellow Hills, which drives her to pursue him and try to hire a bounty hunter. She's the youngest of 7, with 6 older brothers and a mother who's alive and well after her father's murder, whereas in the movie, her entire family, consisting only of herself, her brother, and her parents, is killed by Krem of the Yellow Hills at the beginning, which I think is a fine change as it adds to the motivation of Ruthie going after Krem, instead of her mother allowing her to hunt down a dangerous man on her own. The comic takes place over the course of several months, where Supergirl and Ruthie travel travel to numerous different planets and galaxies. They travel to different planets in the film, but it's only over the course of a few days. I think it's fine to condense the timeline a bit to raise the stakes of Kara having so little time to save Krypto after he's been poisoned, and to keep the narrative as streamlined as possible for a reasonable theatrical runtime. Showcasing every detailed adventure from the comic and all the planets they visited would definitely add to the runtime. One change that might be controversial among readers of the original story is Kara actually killing Krem in the end. In the book, Ruthie was left alone on a planet with Krem while Supergirl was off fighting a large army of brigands in space, having every opportunity to kill Krem, but she prevails in sparing his life all on her own. Learning that killing him wouldn't be the way to go comes through seeing Supergirl's compassion throughout their adventures across different galaxies, and being inspired by her perseverance despite losing so much at an early age. So Krem ends up serving a 200-year sentence in the Phantom Zone. In the movie, Kara convinces Ruthie to spare Krem's life, but Kara ends up killing him by stabbing him in the neck once Ruthie walks away. As expected, we learn more about what happened on Krypton from Kara's perspective, including how Argo City was broken off from the planet and surrounded by a force field before Krypton exploded. While the deterioration of Argo City and the people around her was relatively faithful, the movie changes it so that Kara is actually younger than Clark. I think most people are familiar with one of her post-crisis origins, where Kara is technically older as she was a teenager when Clark was a baby, but she gets put in suspended animation during her journey to Earth, so when she arrives years later, she's physically younger. But in the DCU, she wasn't born until 8 years after Krypton's destruction, and after baby Kal-El was sent off in his ship. Now, I do have some issues with certain plot points and how the script tackles them. Kara and Ruthie go to the planet Bilky in search of answers about the whereabouts of Krem and the brigands. They come across a bar where some rando sees Ruthie and wants to take her for himself. Kara challenges him to an arm wrestling match where if he wins, he can have both Kara and Ruthie, but if Kara wins, he has to provide them with intel on the location of the brigands.
You win and you can have us both. I win and you can tell us where the brigands are.
Some other random nigga comes in and decides to arm wrestle her since he's bigger, but gets his arm broken because the planet is under a yellow sun, so Kara has her incredible strength. After breaking his arm, she gets into a fight with pretty much everybody in there, but after it's all said and done, for some reason Kara doesn't go after the one guy she wanted to talk to for information in the first place, or interrogate literally any other individual at the bar. She just lets them leave. This results in her being coerced by a couple who runs the bar, who trick her into believing they know a friend who knows where the brigands are, and that they just need to make their way to their house for them to tell Kara, which leads to her and Ruthie going to their house, spending some time talking to each other, and waiting for said friend that never shows up because they don't exist. Kara then gets poisoned by a drink, although temporarily as the poison doesn't work to its full effect due to her Kryptonian physiology. The couple was deceptive because the brigands took their daughter, so they made a deal to turn in Kara and Ruthie in exchange for their daughter's return. I don't know why Kara would prefer to wait for someone to travel however long it takes to reach her just to give her the necessary information, especially if she's on borrowed time, instead of simply asking more questions to the people around her at the bar. And to make matters even worse, after another fight outside where Krem ends up killing the couple and their daughter, Kara flies up into space in a fit of rage, comes crashing down and ends up finding one of the original guys she met at the bar relatively quickly. He then tells her a location for the brigands after being threatened by her. Literally all of the conflict after the bar fight could have been avoided if she had just done that immediately afterward.
You couldn't have done that earlier?
I hate you.
You find out that Lobo is also looking for a brigand for a bounty he's pursuing, and he was chilling in the same bar Kara and Ruthie were in before they arrived.
I'm looking for a brigand. Goes by the name of Drom Baxton. I know he was here. You're saying he wasn't.
The problem is that he was there the entire time the whole arm wrestling scuffle happened, and he wasn't sitting that far away from Kara during the whole ordeal. Did he not overhear the fact that someone else is also looking for the brigands and didn't use that to his advantage? Why didn't Lobo just interrogate any of the other guys before they left after fighting Kara instead of asking the owner? Or ask any of them when he first arrived the building well before Kara even arrived? Was he just asleep or something? My second big problem is the main villain, Krem. He's a very unremarkable antagonist. There's not a lot of intrigue or complexity to his character, and his way of going about things is a bit inconsistent. Apparently, there was some cut content featuring parts of his backstory where he faced child abuse that he believed made him stronger, and he threatened to make Ruthie his wife following the pattern of abuse. The inconsistencies relate to when he and the brigands want to kill Ruthie, or at least they state they want to do so, but don't. One of them ends up capturing Ruthie while she is trying to search for water for Kara, as Kara is struggling under the conditions of a planet with a green sun, which is severely weakening her. Ruthie is kept in a cell next to Lobo, and Krem wants to make a deal with her where he'll let her live if she gives him the location of Kara. Ruthie quite literally spits in his face, Krem walks away and verbatim tells his men monitoring the cell, this one dies before the end of the day. Why? Just kill her right then and there if she serves no use to you and isn't willing to comply. There was no plan to torture her in the long run or play the waiting game for her to give the information Krem needed. They weren't going to use her as leverage to get to Kara as she was incapacitated at the time. He just assumed Ruthie refused to cooperate, which is why he wanted her dead by the end of the day. There's the end of the third act where a bunch of the brigands have Ruthie surrounded in a circle and Krem goes for the killing blow after seeing Supergirl in the vicinity. But the other brigands just stand there in pause mode once Supergirl flies into Krem, pushing him out of the area. I don't know why they conveniently waited for Supergirl to fly back to try and kill Ruthie again when they didn't even see her coming the second time. There were so many windows where they had ample time to do the job. Like, damn, do you want to kill this girl or not? In the comic, I think Krem is better represented as a threat, with his savagery and brutality better showcased by the number of people he and the brigands have slaughtered just for the love of the game, going from planet to planet, massacring large groups of alien populations. I think seeing the profound trail of bodies left by the brigands and Krem's reign of terror would make his inevitable defeat more satisfying, because outside of poisoning Crypto and killing Ruthie's family, he doesn't really do much in the movie to make him seem formidable. Even with the context surrounding some of the fight scenes, there was a consistent amount of action throughout. It never felt boring, and there was a bit of variety in how Supergirl approached fighting off other aliens and the brigands, whether it was more hands-on or using her abilities. Some of the moves she did had me like, oh, but I don't think any of the action reached the same highs or were as memorable as Superman taking down the Raptors or Mr. Terrific's scene at the beach site. As of right now, Superman remains the strongest DCU project released so far. Supergirl isn't necessarily anything to write home about, and probably won't be remembered as one of the highlights of the DCU as the universe progresses, but it's definitely not a bad entry and is enjoyable. Ana Noguera and whoever ends up directing the Wonder Woman movie, lock in. I don't want a movie that's safe or gives the feeling of, the movie was alright, it was serviceable. Nah bro, you gotta hit a home run with Diana. If I don't get an orgasmic experience when watching the DCU Wonder Woman film in theaters, I'm becoming a DCU hate channel.
Now, tell I'm not playing.
Jokes aside, the reception this movie receives in the coming weeks won't be disastrous enough to destroy the future plans of the universe or anything significant. I do want future projects to be better, and I hope that they can ensure consistent, high-quality scripts and editing across the board. This is only a minor setback. We'll be back if Lanterns, Clayface, and Man of Tomorrow are all bangers. The gun only slightly jammed, we'll be alright.